Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Swanee and I'm joined by my friend Cookie, and today we're going over our thoughts on Star Wars Outlaws. Now last week I got exclusive access to a behind the scenes gameplay showcase that showed off over a half an hour of new gameplay and showed 3 new mission types. I got to see a mission that took place on an Imperial base, a stealth mission where you had to steal an important item for the Syndicate, and an exploration mission where the goal was to find some data on an old crashed ship. Now yesterday was also the Ubisoft showcase where they showed over 10 additional minutes of gameplay and revealed a ton of brand new info. So after seeing all this new gameplay, I just wanted to go over our thoughts about the game so far. So Cookie, why don't you start us off?
Well, I figure the best place to start talking is to talk about the graphics, because that is something you are going to instantly see no matter what part of the footage you're looking at. And my basic point of view of the graphics is pretty solid overall. Well, let me put it this way. It's pretty solid in some places and not good in other places. Like, as far as the environments and, the hills, the mountains, the sky and, the cityscapes and everything, I think that all looks pretty damn good. I think it's pretty solid. I don't really see any problems there. I don't think it's revolutionary or anything, but it looks good. I don't think there should be any complaints in that regard. Most of the alien models I think look really, really good. I think there's no real problems with that either. But, and this has been talked about since the original trailer came out months ago, the facial animations on the humans do not look good, including the main character herself, Kai Vess. And I do think that is something that is hard to get past, because in every cutscene, it's going to look weird, and that, unfortunately, I thought maybe it would only happen in certain cutscenes it would look weird, but pretty much in every cutscene I saw in this footage, her facial animations still look strange. I don't know what they got wrong, but there's some uncanny valley going on there, and that is a problem.
Yeah, I agree with you, because, in the gameplay footage, I was impressed with the gameplay and the environments and the graphics. It looks pretty solid, but the facial animations, there was a couple cutscenes that we got to see that the public hasn't gotten to see yet between all the different gameplay demos that they've released. And in those cutscenes, it still says, in the exclusive footage that we got to see, it says hey, this is a work in progress. But I mean, the game comes out in a couple months, and in those cutscenes, there's just something off about her face. And it's not just her face, it's like any human face. It just looks like the animations and the hair just doesn't look right. It looks like it's kind of unfinished or tacked on or whatever. But like you said, the aliens look fine. The aliens, I guess it's kind of hard to mess up the aliens because, they're aliens. But a human face, we know what human faces are supposed to look like. And I'm not a big fan of her face.
Yeah, and that can potentially destroy a game. I mean, it's not that long ago, Mass Effect Andromeda had bad facial animations, and that game died. It did, and that was the main issue. It had other issues, but that issue of the facial animations looking bad tanked that game. So that's a potentially very, very big deal. Yeah, I don't know how much that's going to potentially tank the game, but definitely is something that I think, if they can get it sorted out, should try to. But like you said, there's not much time for them to do that.
No, and I mean, it's something that I'm willing to look past. If they don't get the facial animations, it's not the end of the world for me, but that is something I wanted to bring up. It's I think everything in the environments look good. It's just, the faces look a little wonky.
Yeah, and I like how the environments feel very alive. There's a lot going on around you. You don't feel like you're walking through a barren wasteland everywhere you go. And even the places that you expect to be kind of like a barren wasteland, seems like there's a lot of things going on there too. So I like how they've really made everything kind of interesting going on around you, and it's not just a bunch of blank space.
Yeah, I really like the environments too, and I like how it kind of, the environments are designed around some of the different mission types, which kind of segues me into the next point, which is the mission types and the stealth. I really enjoyed the variety of mission types that they had. It seemed like, there's the main story, but then there's the side missions you can do, and there's the exploration side of things. And in the 3 different mission types that I saw, they all kind of played a little bit differently than one another, and there was the stealth aspect of it. And in all 3 of these different missions, they started off with a little bit of stealth, and then it immediately went downhill and turned into guns blazing, and it was an all-out gunfight. I like that there's the option of hey, you can go in and take out everybody stealthily without anybody knowing, but if you want to go in guns blazing, you can do so.
Yeah, or like how they showed in the gameplay, a combination of both. Like you start out stealthy to get yourself to a certain point, and then when you feel comfortable enough, then you go guns blazing. And some of the missions, they did that too. So that's a nice place to be. It's a little hard to tell that whether you always have that choice or not. But assuming they do keep going with that idea, that's really good to give gamers the choice to go however they want to. I like how there's a decent amount of options when it comes to the stealth. Like it's not just throw a rock and distract them. Like you have multiple ways to distract them, multiple ways to take them down. I think that's pretty creative. It does seem like there's certain random things in the environment you can use too that are placed there for stealth options. So it does look like they actually put some thought into the stealth system outside of just making it a run-of-the-mill stealth system. So that definitely seems like this is going to be a big part of the game.
And when things did go south, I actually liked how there was a little bit of variety in the gameplay. I noticed that when it came to like picking up weapons and stuff, there was a number of different weapons throughout the environment that you could just pick up and use temporarily. And I wasn't really expecting that. I just figured you would have your primary weapon and then whatever weapons you would unlock, and then that's kind of what you're stuck with. But I watched her like kill a stormtrooper, and then she picked up the stormtrooper's weapon and was using it against the other stormtrooper. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it fits how her character is, the whole kind of idea of somebody who's just trying to make it in the galaxy. Like you take whatever you can get. You can pick a gun off the ground and start shooting it. That's what you're going to do. That fits that character a lot better too. So that's a smart addition that they made. I do feel like in general the weapon gameplay is fine, but not particularly interesting from what I saw. Like it doesn't look like it has a lot of great gunplay. You don't get to see a ton in the footage, and obviously there's probably a lot more guns, but nothing really stood out to me on that plane.
Yeah, I wasn't really blown away by it either. It just kind of looks passable. Like we didn't get to play it. I know some content creators got to play this same 3 missions. We only just got to see the missions. I also watched some other content creators like that did get to play it. They said the combat just felt okay as well. So it just looks and I guess feels just kind of meh. It just doesn't, I don't know. It's not really blowing me away. But I mean, as long as everything else is fun, I mean, I could give the combat a pass, I guess. I guess won't know until the game comes out. Yeah, plus you get different gadgets, and I'm sure it'll make it more fun as you like level up your character.
Yeah, it is a little bit unclear. You can kind of tell she shoots with a bunch of different kinds of firing modes and stuff, which I think is really cool. And that could be an aspect of the combat that makes it a lot more interesting. But just based on the little we got to see here, it doesn't look like it's going to be that creative or particularly interesting. But, that could definitely change too. Now, that kind of combat's not the only kind of combat in this game. There is some vehicle combat too, because you can fight in space. There is some space combat. And this has to be, for me personally, probably one of the worst things that I saw in the footage. I just don't think this space combat looks good. I think space looks good. I think they did a good job in the graphics department there, but this looks very, very, very basic as far as space combat is concerned. The explosions don't even look good. It's almost like they probably could have just not had this part in the game and been okay, because this doesn't look like doesn't look very inspired.
It feels like it's kind of tacked on. I was watching the YouTuber Skill Up. He actually got to play it, and he said that the space combat was one of his weakest points too. Like he said that the space combat just felt passable, like it was just clunky, and it looks clunky just compared to Star Wars Battlefront 2 or that other Star Wars Starfighter game. Squadrons was like a whole flight simulation game. I guess if you compare it to those games, or even Starfield that came out last year, it just doesn't look that impressive. Like it looked like the TIE fighters weren't putting up much of a fight at all. They were kind of just dying in a couple hits. So yeah, I do like, however, that you can land on the planets, and it's like there's no loading screen. It's just a transition of like you fly down through the clouds and can land. That's pretty cool. And I like that I like when games do that and they hide the loading screens and they make it immersive.
Yeah, I think that's one of the cooler things about it, which is why I don't think they should get rid of the whole space thing entirely. It's just like, because landing on the planets feels, like you said, very immersive, very cool. It feels like you're not playing a video game, you're actually there. And that's kind of the goal. So, yeah, if you can hide the loading screens like they do with the clouds, it's very smart. It looked very smooth. It looked like that's not a weird transition, so as long as it stays that way, that's one of the cooler things I think I saw in the gameplay. Even though that might seem like a small thing, that's pretty epic to go from one planet to the other and they're like, wow, I just went through the clouds and I'm in a completely different place.
All right, so next up, I want to talk about the reputation system and the wanted system. Now, there are a number of different factions in the game. There's like the Hutts, and there's the Syndicate, and there's the Crimson Dawn, and you can work with these factions, and depending on like what choices you make can affect like how your standing is with these factions. So if you have a better standing with them, then they'll let you into their systems, and you'll have access to certain areas that you wouldn't get to normally. And then if you make these factions upset, then they will just attack you on sight, and they'll send all their ships or their bodyguards or whoever after you. So for example, if you went to like Tatooine and you pissed off Jabba the Hutt, then he's going to send all his like Gamorrean guards after you and whatever.
For me, this could be the main selling point of this game, depending on how well they do at this. I mean, obviously you can only know so much from what we get to watch, but it looks like this could be really, really fun and give you really a role-playing feel to this game. And this is the main way I think that this game could be different from player to player. Like, each player could have a completely different relationship with each faction. And that includes like the Empire and stuff like that too, and like how their wanted system works. But the reputation is really potentially interesting. I know that it's going to depend, like I think you get better prices and discounts too if you have a better reputation, faction specific stores and stuff like that. There seems to be a lot of different things that is available and not available to you depending on the faction. And I like how if you have to go to a planet like Tatooine, but you happen to have a really bad reputation with the Hutts, then you're just going to have to deal with that. That feels very Star Wars to me. Like, that feels like you're in a moment where like Han Solo would be like, oh man, I don't want to go to that specific planet, but I have to. That feels kind of cool. And I think that's one of the cooler elements that they added to this game. And depending on how well they do at that, that could be so much fun.
Yeah, I agree. That and the wanted system. It's very interesting that there's a wanted system. I like any game that has a wanted system because it's fun to get wanted or try to avoid the wanted level or to get rid of your wanted level. And the fact that if you're so wanted, the Empire is going to send stuff after you. And it's been confirmed that if you have like a max wanted level, they'll send ATSTs, they'll send Death Troopers. Going up against Death Troopers as a non-Force user, I feel like that's going to be a pretty tough challenge.
I think it's hard if you were a Force user. I think that that's what's so cool. If you have the consequences, the whole consequence system is really cool in video games, and this is their chance to have that in this game and make it different. So, and I would imagine you can't just be friends with all the factions simultaneously. Maybe you can if you're really, really smart, but more than likely, if you're helping one gang, you are hurting another. So you're going to have to pick and choose your allies and who you want to be friends with at what time. Meanwhile, also dealing with the Empire and everything that has to do with that. So there's just a lot of different ways that a person could run that system. And if the system is smart enough, that could be so much fun.
Mm-hmm. And one of the missions I saw, you actually had to steal an important item from the Crimson Dawn and bring it to the Syndicate. So that's obviously going to make the Crimson Dawn pretty angry at you.
Or at least it definitely should. Unless you found a way to make it so the Crimson Dawn doesn't know you stole that, which is where you get this like different potential outcomes. If you're somehow smart enough to make it so the Crimson Dawn doesn't think you did it, and then you get to keep your reputation with both, that would be really, really cool if you could actually be able to do stuff like that.
Next up, I want to briefly talk about the customization. You can customize your speeder, you can customize your ship, you can customize your primary weapon, and I think all that stuff's pretty neat. Yeah, I think you can even obviously customize your character, like you can change your outfits, and you can even customize your little pet Nix too, which is pretty neat. Now, I hope there's a little bit more customization. I hope there's like a player home or something, because if you're working with all these factions and you're trying to like earn money, I hope there's like a big end goal of like, hey, I want to spend my money on something. I want to like, can we decorate our ship? Can we, I don't know. I hope there's just something big like that we can pump money into.
Yeah, or otherwise like all this cool stuff to make more money isn't going to make much of a difference if you don't have anything cool to spend it on. I mean, you're basically a smuggler trying to make money in the galaxy. What are you trying to make the money for? So they do need to have some decent stuff for the player to buy. It makes it that much more immersive too.
All right, so overall, I was pretty impressed with this. before this gameplay showcase, all we had to go off of was the trailer, and I wasn't very excited just based off of the first trailer. I was expecting, since this is an Ubisoft game, I thought it was going to be just another Far Cry with a Star Wars skin slapped on it, and it was going to be just very little effort put into it, because it's Star Wars. They just want the Star Wars name, and they're going to slap $100 price tag on it and call it a day. But after seeing this gameplay, I'm pretty impressed. I'm actually intrigued, and I'm actually kind of excited to play this now, when before I wasn't that excited.
Yeah, I kind of feel sort of... I feel better than I did when I saw the original trailer, because when I saw the original trailer, I just kind of thought the same way as you, like this is going to be a cash grab and there's nothing more to it. But after saying this, it definitely shows that this is a game that a lot of work was put into, and actually they did try to make a good game here, from what I can tell. I will admit it feels very much like it's just another skin of the Jedi games to some extent, Fallen Order and Survivor in some areas. It feels very, very familiar to that. That isn't necessarily a bad thing, because those games are good. And I feel like this is going to be a generic fun game, and I think people will probably enjoy it. There's certain elements of it that could take it to the next level, like I said, with the factions and stuff like that, and how alive the worlds really are. We'll just have to see if those things really live up to the potential hype of what they could be, because that could take it to another level, or it could just be kind of a forgettable fun game, which is still better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, like if I had to make a prediction, like this obviously isn't going to be like a 10 out of 10 masterpiece. Like this isn't going to win Game of the Year, but I feel like it's going to be a fun Star Wars game. And like something that like we didn't even bring up was they have gambling too. So like you can play Sabacc, and you can like, I think there's betting, and there's different kind of gambling and stuff in the game, which is pretty neat. Anytime there's small little mini games like that, that's always super fun. So I can't wait to like sit down and play Sabacc with, like, I know Lando is in one of the trailers, so I think that's pretty neat.
I don't have like very high expectations for this game, but at least I have some expectations now, because before I expected nothing. So it definitely increased my interest, and there is potential here for a very fun game. It just depends on how much effort did they put into those interesting pieces.
Plus, it's going to have DLC that they've already announced, and they're trying to get people to buy. So they plan on like supporting this for a while. So I'm hopeful. I think it'll be fun, and I'm excited to play it. It's just, I just don't think it's going to be like a masterpiece. It probably won't even be as good as the Jedi Survivor game, but it'll still probably be fun. But that's going to do it for our thoughts on Star Wars Outlaws so far. Let us know what you guys thought of the gameplay presentation. Are you guys excited for the game? Are you feeling the same way you did before you saw the new trailer? Like, any and all comments, let us know your thoughts. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications, that way you don't miss out on any future videos. And that is going to do it for us, and we will talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye.